Chapter 4. Captain Cook. Call who, Captain Cook? Asked Mrs. Popper, who had come home so quietly that none of them heard her. Why, the Penguin, said Mr. Popper. I was just saying, he went on, as Mr. Popper sat down suddenly on the floor to cover her surprise. Why, that's why we name him Captain Cook. He was a famous English explorer who lived about the time of the American Revolution. He sailed all over where no one had been before. He didn't actually get to the South Pole, of course, but he made a lot of important scientific discoveries about the Antarctic regions. He was a brave man and a kind leader, so I think Captain Cook would be very suitable for the name of our penguin here. Well, I never, said Mrs. Popper. Gork, said Captain Cook, suddenly getting lively again. With a flap of his flippers, he jumped to the tub to the washstand, and stood there for a minute surveying the floor. When he jumped down, walked over to Mrs. Popper, and began to peck at her neck. Stop him, Papa, screamed Mr. Popper, retreating into the hallway, with Captain Cook after her, and Mr. Popper and the children following into the living room when she paused. So did Captain Cook, for he was delighted with the room. Now a penguin may look very strange in a living room, but a living room looks very strange to a penguin. Even Mrs. Popper had to smile as they watched Captain Cook look with the light curiosity of his excited circular eyes, and his black tailcoat dragging pompously behind his little pinkish feet, strut from one upholstered chair to another, pecking at each one to see what it was made of. Then he turned suddenly and marched to the kitchen. Maybe he's hungry, said Janie. Captain Cook immediately marched to the refrigerator. Gork, he expired, to the slant of his head to the wisely as at Mrs. Popper, and looking at her pleadingly with his right eye. He certainly is cute. I guess I'll have to forgive him for biting my ankle. He probably only did it out of curiosity. Anyway, he's a nice, clean-looking bird. Ork? Repeated the penguin, nibbling at the metal handle of the refrigerator with his outstretched beak. Mr. Popper opened the refrigerator door for him, and Captain Cook stood very high and leaned his sleek black head back so that he could see what was inside. Now that Mr. Popper's work was over for the winter, the icebox was not quite as full as usual, but the penguin did not know that. What, what do you suppose he likes to eat? Said Mrs. Popper. Let's see, said Mr. Popper, as he removed all the food and set it on the table. Now then, Captain Cook, take a look. The penguin jumped out of the chair to the edge of the table, flapping his flippers again and again to recover the balance. And then he walked solemnly around the table, between the dishes of food, inspecting everything with the greatest interest, though he touched nothing. Finally he stood over, very erect, raising his beak to the point of the ceiling, and made a large ork, almost purring sound. Ork, ork, he thrilled. That's a penguin way of saying how pleased he is, said Mrs. Popper, who had read about it in the Antarctic books. Apparently, however, what Captain Cook wanted was to show that he was pleased with their kindness rather than with their food. For now, to their surprise, he jumped down and walked to the dining room. I know, said Mrs. Popper, we ought to have some seafood for him, canned shrimp or something. Or maybe he isn't hungry yet. I've read that penguins can go over a month without food. Mamma, Papa, cried Belle, come see what Captain Cook has done. Captain Cook had done it all right. He discovered the bowl of goldfish in the dining room window living sill. By the time Mrs. Popper had reached over to lift him away, he had already swallowed the last of the goldfish. Bad, bad penguin, reproved Mrs. Popper, glaring down at Captain Cook. Captain Cook squatted guiltily over the carpet and tried to make himself look small. He knows what he's done wrong, said Mr. Popper. Isn't he smart? Maybe we can train him, said Mr. Popper. Bad Captain, she said to the penguin in a loud voice. Bad to eat goldfish, and he smacked him on his round black head. Before she could do that again, Captain Cook hastily waddled out of the kitchen. There the Poppers found him trying to hide in the still refrigerator. He was squatting under the ice cube coils, under which he could barely squeeze. Sitting down, his round, white-circled eyes looked out mysteriously from the dimness inside of the box. I think it's about the right temperature for him at that. We could let him sleep here at night. But where will we put all the food? Well, I guess we could get another icebox for the food, said Mr. Popper. Look, said Janie, he's gone to sleep. Mr. Popper turned the cold control switch to its coldest so that Captain Cook could sleep more comfortably. Then he left the door ajar so the penguin would have plenty of fresh air to breathe. Tomorrow I will have an icebox service department send a man out to bore some holes in the door for air, he said, and then we can put a handle on the inside of the door so Captain Cook can go in and out of the refrigerator as he pleases. Well, dear me, I never thought this would happen, or a penguin for a pet, said Mrs. Popper. Still, he behaves pretty well, on the whole, and he is nice and clean, and perhaps he will be a good example to you and the children. And now, I declare, we must get busy. We haven't done anything but watch that bird. Papa, will you please help me get some beans on the table, please? Just a minute, answered Mr. Popper. I just happen to think Captain Cook may not feel right on the floor of the icebox. Penguins make their nests of pebbles and stones, so I will just take some ice cubes out of the tray and put them under him. That way he will feel more comfortable.